Welcome to our annual webinar on the NYSED graduation requirements updated, presented by Melissa Montague. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're recording the meeting and we're going to do a summary. We will email you the presentation tomorrow with a link to the recording so that you'll be able to share it and watch it again. This is our disclaimer on intellectual property rights. I'm not going to read it. So our presenter is Melissa Montague. She's an associate in instructional services, and she knows more about graduation requirements than any human being in New York State. And we enjoy doing this every year. It's our most attended webinar. At the moment, there's 409 people on it. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm not going to be able to share them live this year with 400 and whatever people on the webinar. So go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll see what we can get to at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rotunda. So I'm super happy to be here today. I'm going to share my screen here in a second. And I thank you for your time and your energy. I just wanted to start by letting you know that today's presentation will be a presentation on the current diploma requirements. So we do have two updates related to our current requirements, but this conversation will not be related to the graduation measures initiative. So I'll share a very brief update on that initiative towards the end of the presentation when I share some resources, but the bulk of our conversation will relate to the current diploma requirements. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear before we started. I know a lot of the questions that you sent in advance were really related to that grad measures initiative. So I just wanted to make that clear. So I'd like to start with a huge thank you to the New York School Counselor Association. Our partnership ensures that this information is shared widely across the state, and we appreciate your collaboration. So special thanks to Michael Gardner and Dr. Rotunda for arranging this conversation today. Here's an agenda for our time together. Since you're already serving beyond your scheduled workday, we'll start with the updates. There are only two updates, as I said, related to our current diploma requirements. The first is a simple update to the form that needs to be submitted for the superintendent determination option. And the second relates to the newly approved exemptions due to major life events. Following those updates, we'll discuss the current diploma requirements. Then much of our time will be spent discussing the credit requirements, those diploma assessment requirements, including the 4+1 or the pathway models, as well as endorsements and seals, our transfer students, and then, as I said earlier, some additional resources that may be beneficial to your work. As Dr. Rotunda said, you can certainly enter any questions in the chat as they arise, but we will hold all questions till the end of the presentation to make sure we run over time. And I will follow up with a Q&A document to address any questions that we're not able to address during our time together today. I know we've done that in the past and that has worked out really well. So my contact information will be shared at the conclusion of the presentation. So we'll begin with updates. So in March, the Office of Special Education updated the language on the form and the webpage related to the superintendent determination option. The changes clarify how to complete the form, and they highlight the fact that additional documentation such as the parent request forms, student transcripts, report cards, career plans, transition plans, CDOS certificates, those do not need to be submitted to the New York State Education Department. So the only thing that needs to come to the department is the actual form. While the form and the webpage have been updated, the requirements for earning the superintendent determination, the local diploma via the superintendent determination have not changed at all. So a very brief update on that. And then something that many of you were asking about are those exemptions due to major life events. So as leaders in education, the Blue Ribbon Commission on Graduation Measures was mindful of individual student circumstances and needs. And as such, one of the commission's recommendations was to pursue regulatory changes to provide exemptions from diploma assessment requirements for our students who are experiencing major life events. So based on that recommendation, the department did propose an amendment to the regulations to allow a superintendent or the principal or head of school for a registered non-public school or charter school to make a local determination to provide exemptions from the diploma assessment requirements for students who have experienced a major life event prior to the planned administration of that required diploma assessment. The Board of Regents did approve this amendment for emergency adoption effective March 11th. Exemptions for major life events support our students most in need, and the flexibility ensures that those who are prepared for graduation, as demonstrated by their proficiency in the high school learning standards through their coursework, can continue on their planned trajectory despite experiencing a major life event. In the context of these exemptions, a major life event is any severe illness, severe medical condition, or life-altering incident that significantly impacts or prevents a student's participation in a required diploma assessment. Examples of major life events include, are not limited to, cancer treatment, hospitalization, an accident causing serious injury, a destructive house fire, the death of a parent or person in parental relation, homelessness, or trauma related to deportation or detainment. Exemptions for major life events may be applied to any required diploma assessment. This includes the required Regents exams, NYSED approved Regents exam alternatives, such as the approved AP and IB exams, and NYSED approved pathway assessments, which include assessments in the arts, career development and occupational studies, or CDOS, and world languages. Since checkpoint exams in world languages may be required for students to satisfy certain diploma requirements, for example, earning credit in world languages prior to grade 9, or satisfying the secret requirement in world languages to earn advanced designation. Schools and districts may also grant an exemption from a required checkpoint exam for students who meet the eligibility conditions.
How are you?
Do you need help, Tracy? Oh,
It's Nurses Day. I'm like,
oh,
doing this at 6:30.
oh, got you. Good idea. Cute bags.
Exemptions for major life events apply to students in grades 8 through 12. There is no requirement for students to sit for the specific assessment to be eligible for these exemptions. They could, but they are not required by the state to do so. There are 3 eligibility conditions that students must meet to qualify for exemptions for major life events, which you see here. So those include the student was enrolled in a course of study or makeup program leading to a required diploma assessment. They met or exceeded the learning outcomes for the course of study. In most cases, that means the student has earned credit for the course. And a major life event significantly impacted or prevented the student from participating in that required diploma assessment. Now we'll review the process for granting exemptions for major life events. The process begins with an exemption request. Requests for exemptions from the diploma assessment requirements for major life events may be initiated by the student, their parent or person in parental relation, or their school counselor, teacher, or administrator. Prior to the superintendent's decision to grant an exemption, consent must be obtained from the student's parent or person in parental relation, or from the student in 2 scenarios. 1, if the student is over the age of majority, which is over age 18, and is not a student with a disability receiving services under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. Or the second scenario is if the student is under the age of majority, but is emancipated and acting on their own behalf. In determining whether to grant an exemption, the superintendent shall consider evidence that the student met or exceeded the expected learning outcomes for the course of study in the subject area under review. Such evidence may include the student's final course grade, work completed throughout the school year, and/or any portfolio or performance-based assessments of the student's proficiency in the applicable learning standards. Following the superintendent's review of evidence, the superintendent shall provide each student and/or parent or person in parental relation with notification of their decision. A form documenting the diploma assessment exemption and the reasons for such exemption must be signed by the superintendent, and the original completed form must be retained in the student's permanent record. The department published a sample form for use by schools and districts. If desired, this is optional. You could create your own form if you desire to do so. Additional resources related to exemptions for major life events may be referenced on the Office of Standards and Instruction's frequently asked questions about New York State graduation requirements webpage, which we'll call the Grad Requirements FAQ. The QR code on this slide does link directly to that page. And the resources do include a memo, a sample form, and a list of frequently asked questions and answers. There are currently 29 questions related to the exemptions for major life events. Now we'll discuss some of your questions related to exemptions for major life events that we did receive prior to this presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, I accidentally stopped sharing. Okay, so the first, will the department provide additional examples of major life events? This is a frequently asked question. We're also getting a lot of people giving specific student scenarios and asking if that would qualify. While there are some examples provided in our guidance, which we did just discuss, the department does not intend to publish an exhaustive list of major life events. We do encourage superintendents and heads of schools to consider exemptions on a case-by-case basis. Each school leader or superintendent is in the best position to understand the impact of the major life event on an individual student. A second question related to major life events that came from you is, do students need to pass the associated course to be eligible for an exemption due to a major life event? So with the exception of our students who are enrolled in grade 8 accelerated coursework, yes, they do need to pass that course. For students who are enrolled in grade 8 accelerated coursework that culminates in a diploma assessment requirement, most often the Regents exam, the diploma credit for that course may be awarded upon the granting of an exemption for a major life event. So that proficiency would be demonstrated through their coursework. And if the exemption is granted, then you may also grant that diploma credit. And a third question from you related to the major life event exemptions. Can these exemptions be applied to Regents exams administered prior to June 2025? That is a no. So while the exemptions for major life events cannot be applied to Regents exams prior to June of 2025, if the major life event continues to significantly impact or prevent the student from participating in that required diploma assessment, and they satisfy all other eligibility conditions, that exemption may be granted for the June 2025 Regents exam. Okay, we are going to swing into a review of our current diploma requirements. So as you know, our current requirements are twofold, and students must meet both the diploma credit requirements and the diploma assessment requirements to earn a New York State high school diploma. Right now, we have 3 diploma types. That's the local diploma, the Regents diploma, and the Regents diploma with advanced designation. This is a point where I also like to remind you that all students are entitled to continue their P-12 education through the end of the school year in which they turn 21 for our students in general education, or through the end of the school year in which they turn 22 for our students with disabilities, or until they earn a high school diploma, whichever of those comes first. So we'll begin with our credit requirements. The current diploma credit requirements include a total of 22 units of credit distributed as outlined in the distribution table here on the right. Since the New York City Public Schools do award credit on a semester basis, Their requirements are double that of the state's requirements. In most disciplines, students do have choice in the courses that they choose to take to fulfill these requirements. While most students will fulfill the social studies credit requirements using 1 credit in US history, 2 credits in global history and geography, and a half credit in participation in government and economics, there is flexibility in the regulations that does allow for equivalent coursework. This flexibility exists for students who are entering from out of state or out of country in grades 11 or 12. In those instances, the principal can accept any other 2 credits in social studies in lieu of the credit requirement in global history and geography. And there is also flexibility that exists for all students. If approved by the superintendent, equivalent coursework may be accepted. In that case, as long as the student has 4 credits of social studies coursework and the superintendent has deemed those courses to be equivalent, the student could graduate with non-traditional social studies courses and credits. In science, students must earn a total of 3 credits with at least 1 credit in life science and at least 1 credit in physical science. And students could use a technology education course to satisfy either the 3rd credit requirement in science or the 3rd credit requirement in mathematics, but not both. If a student is exempt from the world language credit requirement per their IEP, they would need an elective credit in lieu of that diploma credit requirement. Students who are exempt from that credit requirement per their IEP are also exempt from the sequence requirement for advanced designation, which we'll talk about in a bit, but they wouldn't need the additional 2 credits in world language and the passing checkpoint B exam score, but they also wouldn't need a 5-unit sequence in the arts or career and technical education. They would need to satisfy the diploma credit requirements and the diploma assessment requirements for advanced designation, which will be increased from 4+1 to 7+1. And we will discuss that in just a little bit here. The only area where a student could graduate with fewer than 22 credits is physical education. And that is because students must earn a quarter credit in physical education for every semester they're enrolled in a New York State high school. And they must maintain that enrollment either through their graduation or through the end of their 8th semester. So there are 2 scenarios where a student's physical education credit requirements could be reduced, therefore reducing the total number of credits they would need to graduate. So our students who are accelerating their diploma requirements and meeting all other requirements prior to their 8th semester, they would have a reduction in their phys ed credits and could graduate with fewer than 22 credits. So for example, if a student finishes all other requirements by the end of their junior year, they would only need a total of 1.5 credits in physical education, and they could graduate with 21.5 credits overall instead of the 22. And likewise, for our transfer students who are coming in from out of state or out of country, they would need to earn that quarter credit for every semester they're here in New York State. So that could lead to a reduction in this requirement as well. So if a student enters in their junior year, they're enrolled here in New York State for 4 semesters, they would need to earn a total of 1 credit in physical education, which could reduce their total credit requirement to 21 instead of 22. This slide highlights the various ways that students can earn credit. So most often diploma credit is earned through the successful completion of a unit of study, which requires a minimum of 180 minutes of instruction per week or the equivalent. We do equate that to 108 hours for 1 credit, and students must demonstrate their mastery of the learning outcomes for that course. The determination of whether or not the student has passed that course is locally determined based on your local grading policies. It's also important to note that this is not a seat time or attendance requirement. It is the educational entitlement that the school is providing to the student, but attendance policies are locally determined. So according to the state's requirements, the awarding of credit is not dependent upon a certain number of minutes that a student is actually in attendance in that course. Students can also earn credit by exam. Students can earn a maximum of 6.5 credits using credit by exam. That means they would need to earn an 85 or above on a Regents exam without ever having enrolled in the course of study. So this option is available for those students for whom the superintendent or chief administrative officer determines would benefit academically from this option. To earn the credit, they need to earn that 85 or above on the Regents exam, and they also need to complete a locally developed oral exam or special project. Exactly what that looks like is locally determined. The intention is to assess the areas of the learning standards that would not be assessed through the Regents exam, but would be assessed through the coursework. Grade 8 acceleration for diploma credit is offered to students who demonstrate readiness as determined by the superintendent or their designee. Grade 8 students may be awarded diploma credit for high school courses if they pass both the course and the culminating assessment. So in the case of Regents exams or courses that culminate in Regents exams, they would need to pass both the course and that Regents exam. Students can earn a maximum of 3 units of elective credit through independent study. Participation in independent study is approved by a school-based panel, and the course must be based on specific criteria. Students can obtain a unit of credit in visual arts and or music, dance, or theater by participating in certain specific performing arts groups or advanced activities. We'll discuss transfer credit in a few moments when we talk about our transfer students. Students can also enroll in summer school to earn both credit for incomplete or failed coursework and to earn credit for initial credit. So a lot of times we relate summer school just to making up failed or incomplete coursework, but students could earn initial credit through summer instruction as well. And finally, we have the makeup course credit. Students can successfully complete a makeup credit program to demonstrate their mastery of learning outcomes for failed or incomplete coursework. The state's requirement for making up failed or incomplete coursework is very broad. So makeup programs are locally determined. They could range from retaking or repeating an entire course to targeted instruction in the areas of deficiency for the individual student. And now we have a question from you related to the physical education credit requirement. If a student is taking courses at a local community college in their senior year of high school, are they still required to enroll in a physical education course at their high school? So there are not any waivers or exemptions from the physical education credit requirements. If the student is still enrolled in high school, they would need to earn that quarter credit for each semester they're enrolled in a New York State high school, either until they meet the diploma requirements or through the end of their 8th semester of high school. Okay, now we're going to swing into the assessment requirements, and this is really where the bulk of the flexibility exists under our current system for our students. So most often our students are using Regents exams to satisfy the diploma assessment requirements. This slide highlights the rules for admission into a Regents exam. According to Section 8.2 of the Rules of the Board of Regents, any student who's had the opportunity to complete a course of study that culminates in a Regents exam has the right to be admitted into that exam. So we cannot bar our students from Regents exams for disciplinary reasons or because we deem their achievement to be unsatisfactory. The only instance where there's an additional requirement is in the case of the Regents exams in science, where students must also meet that 1,200-minute laboratory requirement. So since 2016, our diploma assessment requirements have followed the multiple or 4+1 pathway model. So all students must pass one required assessment, that's a Regents exam or NYSED approved Regents exam alternative in English, math, science, and social studies. And now they have flexibility in the pathway that they choose to meet that 5th diploma assessment requirement. We do currently have 8 approved pathway options for our students. And this slide just puts those pathway options into buckets according to the requirements that students must meet to fulfill that pathway option. So in orange on the left, students can satisfy the +1 pathway requirement by passing an additional Regents exam or NYSED approved Regents alternative. That's true for the humanities and STEM pathways. So if a student passes an additional Regents exam in social studies, science, or math, they may use that to meet that +1 pathway requirement. And likewise, if a student passes an additional NYSED approved alternative in English, social studies, science, or math, they may use that to meet that 5th diploma assessment requirement or that +1 pathway requirement. In yellow in the middle, students can also use a NYSED approved pathway assessment to meet the +1 pathway requirement. We do currently have NYSED approved pathway assessments in the arts, in world languages, and in career development and occupational studies, or CDOS. That is option 2 for earning the CDOS commencement credential. And then finally, in green, we have the more programmatic pathway options. The first programmatic pathway is the CTE pathway. To satisfy the CTE pathway, students must successfully complete a NYSED approved CTE program, including the 3-part technical assessment. The second programmatic pathway is option 1 for earning the CDOS commencement credential, which we'll discuss in a moment. Students can also complete the civics pathway by successfully completing and earning the seal of civic readiness. And then finally, students can complete the requirements for earning the individual arts assessment pathway, which is a portfolio-based assessment in the arts. Any of these 4 options could be used to satisfy that +1 pathway requirement. We received multiple questions about the CDOS pathway. So I'm going to take a moment to discuss the multiple roles of CDOS, and then we'll discuss the 2 options for earning the CDOS commencement credential in more detail. So the CDOS commencement credential is unique in our current diploma requirement system because it really can serve 4 roles, 3 of which you see here. The CDOS can be earned as a pathway to a diploma, it can be earned in addition to a diploma, and it can be earned as a standalone exiting credential. When the CDOS commencement credential is earned either as a pathway to a diploma or in addition to a diploma, the student must meet the diploma credit requirements. They must pass those 4 disciplinary assessments, so a Regents exam or NYSED approved Regents alternative in English, math, science, and social studies. If they then complete the CDOS commencement credential requirements, they can use that as their pathway to their diploma. If they complete any other pathway other than the CDOS and also complete the requirements for earning that commencement credential, they have earned that CDOS in addition to their diploma. And then finally, all students can earn the CDOS as a standalone exiting credential. This is for our students who have attempted but weren't able to successfully complete all the requirements for the Regents or local diploma, but they did complete the requirements for earning the CDOS commencement credential. They may earn that as a standalone exiting credential. It is important to note and ensure that our students and families understand that when the CDOS is earned as a standalone exiting credential, it is not equivalent to a diploma. And students who have exited with this as a standalone exiting credential do maintain their educational entitlement to return to continue their pursuit of earning a diploma if they have not reached that age of 21 or 22 for our students with disabilities. Here are the requirements for earning the CDOS commencement credential via option 1. Students must complete a career plan and employability profile within a year of their graduation, and they must demonstrate their achievement of the CDOS learning standards, which is done through a minimum of 216 hours of CTE coursework, which must include at least 54 hours of work-based learning experiences. And the graphic on the right is used to illustrate that CTE coursework can be coursework in any of the CTE disciplines. So while many times we think of CTE coursework as coursework that's done as part of CTE programs or coursework that's done at the BOCES, this could be coursework done right in your LEAs. It could be business classes, computer science classes, family and consumer science classes, tech education courses. So there's a lot of flexibility for students to earn this credential right in your local high schools. So just as an example, if a student was to earn a credit in family and consumer sciences and a credit in computer science, if they also had that career plan and employability profile completed within a year of their graduation and a minimum of 54 hours of work-based learning experiences, they have earned that CDOS commencement credential through option 1. And here we see option 2 for earning the CDOS commencement credential, which is the NYSED approved pathway assessment. So if a student meets the minimum requirements for the NYSED approved pathway assessment in career development and occupational studies, they may use that score to satisfy that +1 pathway requirement. Here are our 3 diploma types. So currently students can graduate with the local diploma, the Regents diploma, and the Regents with advanced designation. All 3 diploma types rely on the same diploma credit requirements. Students can earn a local or Regents diploma when they satisfy the diploma credit requirements and also complete the 4+1 diploma assessment requirements. The difference between the local and the Regents diplomas is in the flexibilities that students can use to satisfy those diploma assessment requirements. In most instances, students will graduate with a Regents diploma when they pass all the required diploma assessments. However, students can use one traditional appeal in the all student range, so that's a score in the 60 to 64 range, to meet the requirements for the Regents diploma. In order to earn a local New York State high school diploma, students must meet the diploma requirements and satisfy the 4+1 diploma assessment requirements. And now they're able to use additional appeals, safety nets, and the superintendent determination option to meet those requirements. We'll go into more detail on the different diploma types in just a little bit. To earn the Regents diploma with advanced designation, students must satisfy the diploma credit requirements, pass 3 additional diploma assessment requirements, so that increases the diploma assessment requirements for advanced designation from 4+1 to 7+1, to include 2 additional mathematic diploma assessment requirements and 1 additional science diploma assessment. Students seeking advanced designation must pass at least 1 life science diploma assessment and at least 1 physical science diploma assessment. In addition to the credit and assessment requirements, students seeking advanced designation must also complete a sequence. Students impacted by COVID may continue to use those flexibilities, so those were the exemptions due to COVID and the special appeals, to satisfy the diploma assessment requirements for any of the 3 diploma types. As noted previously, students seeking advanced designation must complete a sequence. Most often, students are completing the world language sequence, which requires an additional 2 credits in a world language for a total of 3 credits and a passing checkpoint B exam score. Students can also complete a 5-unit sequence in either the arts or career and technical education to satisfy that sequence requirement for advanced designation. We did get a question from you related to the 5-unit sequence requirement. And that question was, what courses can students use to satisfy the 5-unit sequence in lieu of the world language sequence for advanced designation? So the 5-unit sequence leading to that Regents diploma with advanced designation is at the discretion of the district. We do recommend the sequence be a meaningful group of courses that build on a student's skills and interests in a particular area. We recommend to begin with a foundational course and advance through electives in the discipline, but ultimately it is the responsibility of the district to determine if a student has satisfied that requirement. The state education department does not have specific course requirements that must be included in a 5-unit sequence for advanced designation. And another question related to the to admission into our Regents exams. Can students take the Algebra 1 Regents after completing Algebra 1A? So there are 2 instances where students can be admitted into Regents exams. The first is because they completed the course of study leading to that Regents exam in its entirety. And the second is because the superintendent determined they would benefit from credit by exam. So if I'm making an assumption here, and courses are locally determined, so exactly what that entails. But typically Algebra 1A is part of a stretch or extended course that is provided over the course of 2 years. If that is the case and the student hasn't received the full instruction in Algebra 1, they would not yet be prepared for admission into that Regents exam, because we do need to make sure that they've been provided the entirety of that instruction so that they can be successful on the Regents. And now we're going to swing into the appeals, safety nets, and superintendent determination option. So I thought I could slip this out of my presentation, but I did have some questions on it, so I put it back in. And that relates to our special appeals. So this special appeals were a limited flexibility to support students impacted by COVID. Special appeals can only be applied to the 5 Regents exam administration periods of June or August of 22 and January, June, or August of 23. To be eligible for these appeals, students must have earned a score in the 50 to 64 range on a Regents exam taken during one of those 5 administration periods, and they must pass the course for which the special appeal is being sought prior to their graduation. So you will still see students graduating with special appeals, and because appeals can be processed anytime prior to a student's graduation, you might still be processing special appeals. For Regents exams that are administered in January 2024 and beyond, students are back to using our traditional appeal options. So to be eligible for a traditional appeal, students must have taken the Regents exam under appeal at least 2 times. They must have earned a score in the appropriate range. So for all students, that's a score of 60 to 64. For students with disabilities who are seeking the local diploma, that's a score in the 52 to 54 range. And then for our eligible English language learners who are seeking appeals on the English Regents only, that's the range of 55 to 59. For the traditional appeals, students must have taken advantage of academic help provided by the school in the subject area in question, and they must have passed the course for which the appeal is being sought. This highlights the ways that all students can earn diplomas using those traditional appeals. So in addition to any special appeals or exemptions, all students can earn the Regents diploma via appeal if they meet the diploma credit requirements and meet the assessment requirements using 1 successfully appealed Regents exam score in that all student range of 60 to 64. All students can earn the local diploma via appeal, again, if in addition to any special appeals or exemptions, they've met the diploma credit requirements, and now they're meeting the assessment requirements using 2 successfully appealed Regents exam scores in that all student range of 60 to 64. Our English language learners can earn the local diploma via traditional appeal if they satisfy the diploma credit requirements and successfully appeal a score in the 55 to 59 range on the ELA Regents exam. Since this will lead to the local diploma, because the score has dipped below that 60 threshold, English language learners utilizing this option may also appeal 1 additional required Regents exam score in that all student range of 60 to 64. To be eligible for the appeal for English language learners, students must have entered the United States in grade 9 or after, and they must have been classified as an English language learner when they took the ELA Regents exam for the 2nd time. Now we're going to discuss our safety net options for students with disabilities. Eligible students with disabilities can utilize the low pass safety net and the compensatory safety net option to satisfy the diploma assessment requirements and earn the local diploma. These safety net options do apply to all students with current IEPs, students with 504 plans who have safety net eligibility written into their plan, and students who were declassified in grades 8 through 12 if the Committee on Special Education recommended their maintenance of the safety net eligibility. The low pass safety net option allows a student with a disability to meet the testing requirements for the local diploma by achieving a score of 55 or above on 1 or more of the required Regents exams. And students who are eligible for the low pass safety net can also appeal up to 2 scores in that 52 to 54 range using the traditional appeals. The compensatory safety net allows eligible students to meet assessment requirements by compensating Regents exam scores in the 45 to 54 range. Now that can be true for any required Regents exam except for ELA and math, with a score of 65 or above on another required Regents exam. our superintendent determination for graduation with a local diploma. So this option allows the superintendent to make a local determination that an eligible student with a disability has otherwise met the standards for graduation with the local high school diploma when the student was not successful because of their disability at demonstrating their proficiency on one or more of the required diploma assessment requirements, the Regents exams required for graduation. To be eligible, the student's parent or person in parental relation must submit a written request that their child be considered for this option. The student must have a current IEP, and they must be receiving special education services, and they must have met the diploma credit requirements and also have demonstrated their competency in the subject areas that they weren't able to demonstrate proficiency through the required Regents exams. In the case where a student is unable to meet the diploma assessment requirements in either ELA or math, to be eligible for the superintendent determination option, they must earn the CDOS commencement credential. So if a student is unable to earn a minimum score of 55 on the ELA or the math Regents exam, or they're unable to appeal a score in that 52 to 54 range on either of those exams, they would then need to earn the CDOS commencement credential to be eligible. So this is that fourth role of the CDOS commencement credential in our current diploma requirements. And that relates to eligibility for the superintendent determination option for our students with current IEPs who are unable to meet the diploma assessment requirements in English and/or mathematics. Okay, another question from you. And I think we've got 4 related to the appeals, safety nets, and superintendent determination. So the first relates to appeals and exemptions. And the question is, can a traditional appeal and an exemption due to a major life event be used together to earn a diploma? This is a yes. Traditional appeals can be used in addition to exemptions. That includes the exemptions due to COVID and exemptions due to major life events and special appeals. And just a note that these exemptions do remain with students until they graduate or exit high school. So they're not going to lose the exemptions. And then we have a question related to traditional appeals. What happens if a student without an IEP or 504 plan is unable to pass the ELA Regents after 2 attempts? So students in general education can access the traditional appeal for all students. That's the earned score in the 60 to 64 range. 1 appeal in that range, as we mentioned earlier, does lead to the Regents diploma. 2 appeals in that range lead to the local diploma. If the student is not able to earn that minimum score of 60, they would need to retake the Regents exam in an attempt to increase their score to 60 or above. Another question related to the superintendent determination option. Can the superintendent's determination be used for any score on the Regents exams, or is there a minimum score? So there is no minimum Regents exam score required for that superintendent determination option. But remember, if a student wasn't able to meet the diploma assessment requirement in English or math, they would need to earn that CDOS commencement credential to be eligible for this option. And another question related to filing for the superintendent's determination option. How do you file for a superintendent's determination? So this was an interesting question. That the superintendent is the one who ultimately makes the decision. So the superintendent determination is not subject to approval by the New York State Education Department. There is a form, which I mentioned was recently updated, which does need to be submitted to the State Education Department, but the determination is made locally. And this is just a reminder that we don't need any of that additional documentation. You can maintain that in the student's records. It doesn't need to come here to the State Education Department. And we're going to swing into our endorsements and seals. And I'm seeing the time, so I'm going to try to get through this really quickly so we have time for your questions. The current New York State diploma requirements do provide opportunities for students who go above and beyond the requirements for their specific diploma type to earn additional endorsements and seals. The technical endorsement can be added to all 3 diploma types. And it does recognize students who complete a NYSED approved CTE program in addition to meeting those minimum diploma requirements. The seal of civic readiness can also be added to all 3 diploma types. Our seal of biliteracy can be added to either the Regents diploma or the Regents with advanced designation. It does recognize high levels of proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in 1 or more languages in addition to English. And since one of the requirements for earning the seal of biliteracy is meeting the requirements for the Regents diploma, it cannot be earned in addition to the local diploma. The honors endorsement and the mastery endorsement. Honors can be added to either the Regents or Regents with advanced designation, and we'll talk about the requirements for that in a second. And then mastery can be added only to the Regents with advanced designation. So the honors endorsement may be awarded to students who completed the requirements for either the Regents or the Regents with advanced designation. And to earn this endorsement, the student must meet the diploma assessment requirements for one of those 2 diploma types and also earn a computed average of 90 or above on the required Regents exams. You cannot round up. We do have a lot of questions related to that. So they do have to earn a 90 or above when you compute that average. Oh, I did want to say one more thing. So in instances where exemptions impact a student's ability to graduate, that does include the exemptions due to COVID and now exemptions due to major life events. The computation for the honors endorsement will be dependent upon the number of earned scores the student has. So, and this is applicable to their diploma type. So in cases where students have more earned scores and or exemptions than are required for that diploma type, you may use the most beneficial combination for the student. So if a student has a minimum of 3 scored Regents exams applicable to their diploma, the exemptions are removed from the computation. And if the computed average of the Regents exam scores that are required, not including those exemptions, equals 90 or above, they have earned that honors endorsement. And then for our students who have fewer than 3 earned scores applicable to their diploma type, the student's final course grade for each exempted Regents exam can be substituted in the calculation for honors. If the computed average now of the earned scores on the Regents exams and the final course grades for which exemptions have been granted equates to 90 or above, that student has earned the honors endorsement. And then we have our mastery endorsement, which may be awarded to students who complete the requirements for the Regents diploma with advanced designation. To earn the endorsement, students must demonstrate mastery on the Regents exams. So the traditional requirement for earning mastery is that students must meet those requirements for advanced designation and pass 3 math and or 3 science Regents exams with a score of 85 or better. With the exemptions due to COVID, the second condition here was added where students can pass 2 math and or 2 science Regents exams with that 85 or better and have 1 exemption on a 3rd math or third science Regents exam and still earn that mastery endorsement. And the 3rd condition was added with the continued exemptions due to COVID, where students can pass 1 math and or 1 science Regents exam with that 85 or better. And if they have a final course average of 85 or better in 2 additional math and or 2 additional science courses that culminated in a Regents exam for which they were granted an exemption, they too may earn that mastery endorsement. And now we're going to discuss our transfer students. This slide just highlights the awarding of transfer credit. So if a student is transferring from another registered New York State high school, the receiving principal must award credit for any credits that were awarded by that sending school. Likewise, principals must award transfer credit for any credits that are attested to by the chief administrator of state agencies. In all other instances, the decision to award transfer credit is determined by the principal after consulting relevant faculty. So the decision would be based on whether the work is deemed to be aligned to the New York State high school learning standards and if it's comparable in scope and quality to work that would be done in the receiving high school. Here's our out-of-state transfer student exemptions from the diploma assessment requirements. So students who are entering a New York State high school from out of state or out of country in grades 11 or 12 may be eligible for exemptions from the diploma assessment requirements. Students do not have to accept these exemptions if it's not beneficial for them to accept them. They're not required to do so. But if a student is entering for the first time in grade 11 or re-entering after spending 3 or fewer semesters in a New York State high school, they may be exempt from the Global History and Geography Regents exam, and they would then meet the diploma assessment requirements for the local or Regents diploma with 4 diploma assessments. So that's ELA, 1 math, 1 science, and US history. And for our students who are entering for the first time in grade 12, or again, re-entering after spending 3 or fewer semesters in a New York State high school, they may meet the diploma assessment requirements for the local or Regents diploma using 3 assessments, because they may also be exempt from the science diploma assessment. So they would need to pass ELA, 1 math, and US history. And on this slide, you also see the note about the social studies flexibility for our students who are transferring from out of state or out of country, where the principal can accept any other 2 social studies credits in lieu of the global history and geography credits. This is just a reminder about our interstate compact for military children. The compact does apply to students who are transitioning due to military orders, and it does prioritize on-time graduation for eligible students. So there are flexibilities provided under this. You can learn more on our interstate compact webpage. One of the areas most impacted in terms of the current diploma requirements is the diploma assessment requirements. There's broad flexibility in the assessments that may be accepted in lieu of the Regents exams or NYSED approved alternatives. So for students covered under the compact, you may accept exams that are required for graduation in the sending state, national norm referenced achievement tests, and of course, local assessments. The Interstate Compact webpage does include an FAQ, an attestation form, for the communication of assessments being accepted in lieu of the Regents and NYSED approved alternatives. And we have a question from you related to in-state transfers, and that is, what are the requirements for students who transfer from schools within New York State that did not require Regents exams? So when students are transferring from within the state, even if that school did not administer Regents exams, those students are still required to fulfill all the diploma assessment requirements to earn their desired diploma type. So the out-of-state transfer exemptions do not apply to our in-state transfer students. And then a second question related to the laboratory requirements. How are transfer students from out of state expected to meet the 1,200-minute laboratory requirement? So when you're determining a transfer student's eligibility for admission into a Regents exam in science, you can include any experiences from the sending school. And just as with all students, those experiences can be hands-on or virtual laboratory experiences. And you can request an attestation letter from the sending district to confirm the number of laboratory minutes that the student successfully completed. The minutes could be embedded in the course, and it could be an approximation, since the school may not be tracking the laboratory minutes as we do here in New York State. If the number of minutes completed in that school combined with the number of minutes that the student has completed in the receiving New York State school equates to that 1,200-minute requirement or above, the student would then be granted admission into the Regents exam in science. Okay, we're going to wrap it up with our resources, and we'll have some time for questions. I'm sorry, there are 4 minutes before 5. I can stay on if others are able to do so. So probably one of the most impactful resources related to the current diploma requirements is the grad requirements FAQ. This does have the answers to the most frequently asked questions related to acceleration, appeals, assessment exemptions, including the major life event exemptions, assessment requirements, diplomas, endorsements and seals, grading policies, and on and on. This is just a reminder or maybe a notification for our newer counselors about the SIRS 340 and 341 report. So this is a level 2 report that details the assessment requirements that a student has met or attempted. And you can ask your local data person if they can get you access to this report. It will give you a projected diploma type and show you where they've either met that diploma assessment requirement, where they may be eligible for an appeal or a safety net. And it's a good way for you to get some information on your students. We do like to stress that the report is to be used for informational purposes only, and it's not intended to be prescriptive. We do recognize that it supports school counselors and could never replace you. Some counselors requested handouts in your pre-meeting survey there. So our graduation requirements, guidance, and resources webpage, which is linked to the slide, and there's also a QR code if you need it right away. It does contain handouts and resources that may support your work. We did update the 2 most used resources this month to include the exemptions for major life events. So those were purple, and they're now the rose-colored resources that you see here. They do include a 1-pager with the diploma credit requirements and additional notes on the front, and the diploma assessment requirements on the back. The second resource is a narrative explanation of each diploma type. So if you're looking for the specifics on a certain diploma type, you can go right to that section and find out what your student needs to earn that diploma. Also pictured here is our tracking tool, which is an editable PDF that allows parents and students to go in and insert the diploma requirements that they've met so far, and they can easily see the requirements that remain for them to earn their diploma. Okay, the moment many of you have been waiting for. In November of 2024, the department did announce its comprehensive plan for implementing the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission on Graduation Measures. This plan is called New York Inspires. The implementation plan represents the feedback of thousands of New Yorkers, and it establishes a timeline of necessary actions to implement the 4 transformations and in turn, the 12 recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission on Graduation Measures. New York Inspires is a 5-year plan that will transform our education system into one in which all students, regardless of their chosen pathway after high school, are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed to thrive in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. The plan does follow a phased approach. So this school year is a planning year. The first 2 phases each take place over 2 school years. So the installation phase, which is phase 1, will take place from fall of 2025 through summer of 2027. Initial implementation, which is phase 2, will take place from fall of 27 through summer of 29. And then finally, full implementation and scaling up, which is phase 3, will begin in the fall of 2029. If you have not had an opportunity to view the presentation to the Board of Regents from November, I encourage you to do so. You can find the recording in the presentation and the news releases section of the Graduation Measures webpage, which is linked here. It's important to note, and I'm going to say this more than once, that none of the proposed changes are final until they are approved by the Board of Regents. So as noted, this year is a planning year. There were 5 major goals outlined in the implementation plan to be completed by summer of 2025. 3 of those goals have been completed. Exemptions from diploma assessment requirements for major life events have been established. The department has also created advisory committees to support instruction in financial literacy and environmental or climate education. And the department is establishing a technical advisory committee to support the prioritization of the learning standards. Finally, we established the Graduation Measures Communication Network to build communication channels to disseminate and support changes to the future diploma requirements. The New York State School Counselors Association nominated 5 of the 66 members to sit on that Graduation Measures Communication Network. So your colleagues in this professional organization are already working to ensure strong communication about the Grad Measures Initiative. We continue to work towards finalizing the New York State Portrait of a Graduate. We do plan to release definitions for each competency area and present the portrait for adoption to the Board of Regents by summer of 2025. So coming up very soon. While our presentation is focused on the current diploma requirements, there was one question related to the Graduation Measures Initiative that I wanted to address to ensure we have consistent understanding. So that question was, what are the Regents exam requirements for our current 9th graders, the 2024 cohort? So again, until changes are approved by the Board of Regents, we must continue preparing our students to meet the current diploma requirements. According to the implementation plan, the diploma assessment requirements would be sunset in fall of 2027. That means that students would no longer need to meet the diploma assessment requirements to earn their diploma. So students would still be required to demonstrate proficiency in the New York State High School Learning Standards, but they would not need to pass Regents exams to graduate. It's important to also note that the Regents exams are not being eliminated or going away. The Regents exams are used not only to satisfy the state's current diploma requirements, but specific Regents exams are also used to satisfy the federal assessment requirements mandated by the Every Student Succeeds Act. Regents exams also provide an opportunity for students to demonstrate their mastery of the learning standards in a specific course. In a moment, we'll take your questions, but before we do, I just wanted to share some contact information with you. Some of the questions posed before today's presentation are best answered by associates in other offices. So for example, if you have questions related to the Checkpoint A exam criteria, you can connect with associates in our Office of Bilingual Education and World Languages. If you have questions related to certification requirements after graduation, you can connect with the Office of Teaching Initiatives. Questions related to the investigations for the New York State P-12 Science Learning Standards aligned Regents exams may be directed to our Office of State Assessment. And this slide provides additional contact information for offices that are typically connected to the work of the current diploma requirements. And here's my contact information if you need it. And finally, a huge thank you to each and every one of you, not only for your time today, but also for the work that you do to support New York students and families. Your work is recognized, it is valued. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I thank you. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can take some questions.
Thank you, Melissa. I took the questions from the chat and put it in a Word doc, so maybe I can share it.
Okay.
Mm.
Awesome.
We'll see how far we get. Some of them may have been answered already. All right. Can you help give some examples of documents to show a student used the school's academic help? What counts as academic help?
So it's really locally determined. So any additional assistance beyond that initial coursework would be academic assistance provided by the school. So many times students will come in for like Regents review prep. Students might take an additional course to review the material before they take it a second time. That additional academic assistance is really locally determined.
So anything past tier 1 usually. Okay. Web tech regarding major life events.
So in terms of the lab requirements and the exemptions for major life events, those exemptions are exemptions from the diploma assessment requirement, not from the laboratory requirement. So you couldn't exempt a student from the laboratory requirement and allow them to sit for the Regents. But if that major life event has impacted their ability to take that Regents exam and the minutes that they missed from the laboratory requirements are also due to that same major life event, you can award the exemption even though they didn't meet the lab requirement.
Credit recovery. I'm not sure what meet the requirement.
Yes, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what meet the criteria means for an
I'm thinking
exemption.
this relates to exemptions for major life events.
Yeah.
The awarding of that diploma credit or the demonstration of proficiency in the learning standards would have to be met prior to the exemption being granted. So for example, if a student was not able to complete a course that ends in January 2025, you noted they're eligible for that exemption, but because they haven't demonstrated that proficiency yet, you couldn't grant it. if that major life event continues to impact their ability to take that Regents exam in January, or even in August, then you could then award that exemption due to the major life event at that time.
I think you just answered this one before.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, war-torn countries.
So it would be locally determined, you know your students best. If that experience is impacting their ability to take that Regents exam, the exemption could be granted.
Same here with medical backup, right?
Yeah, so we're not, like I mentioned in the presentation, we're not going to provide like an exhaustive list. We really want you to consider those exemptions on a case-by-case basis.
State charter school. I don't think coming from an out-of-state charter school is a major
Yeah,
life
no.
event. But it might be an exemption. No,
So again, case-by-case basis, but the exemptions for major life event are really intending to support our students that are most in need and really experiencing a life-changing event.
I'm sorry, but I have about 4 bad jokes for that. I'm not doing it. What do we need to put on the transcript if they're approved for the exemption?
So we do recommend an E or EX.
Cool. Psychology and sociology fall under social studies for 2 credits? Question mark.
So I'm assuming that you're thinking of our students who are transferring from out of state or out of country, 11 or 12. If that's the case, you would need to determine that that psychology and sociology course aligned to the New York State Learning Standards in Social Studies. And the principal would need to accept those in lieu of that requirement.
Does it need to be the student's first attempt at taking the exam, for instance, if the student gets severe illness after attempting the first exam?
So it doesn't need to be the student's first attempt at taking the exam. It could be applied on a retake. There is a question in the FAQ that precisely answers that question. So that is one of our FAQs.
No.
So I see the question about 5th year for physical education. Nope. So if they already satisfied that 2 credit requirement, they do not need to continue enrollment in physical education.
CTE for math or science.
So there is some local discretion there too. If it is determined that a technology education course meets the learning standards in mathematics or science, it can be used to satisfy either the 3rd credit requirement in math or the 3rd credit requirement in science, but students couldn't use 2 tech ed courses to satisfy both the 3rd credit requirement in math and the 3rd credit requirement in science. Our CTE office has some guidance related to that requirement, which I can share with you in my follow-up.
This looks like a bad copy and paste job. Let's see.
So independent study, yeah. So the 3 credits in independent study can only be earned as elective credit. It
Okay.
couldn't be one of the disciplinary credit requirements. So the only instance where students could earn diploma credit prior to grade 8 is when they have completed world language coursework. So if they have the 2 units of study in world language and that passing point A exam, they could earn that world language credit prior to grade 8. In all other instances, the awarding of diploma credit begins in grade 8 or after. And students do maintain any passing scores on Regents exams. So if a grade 8 honors student passes the exam but fails the course, they would maintain that passing
Regents
Regents exam and use it to meet the diploma assessment requirements.
Still counted in his own cohort, right?
Yes, that's correct. So the student would not count against the district's graduation rate for accelerated graduation, no.
Okay.
So in terms of students who are beyond the age of educational entitlement, the district can choose to continue to serve them, but you are not obligated to do so. So you would just want to consider your resources and your ability to serve any student who seeks if you are choosing to serve them. If someone comes in to complete the diploma requirements and they do that, you can award that diploma. Note that diploma requirements are specific to students' cohorts, so you would just need to make sure that they're meeting the correct requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the CDOS as a standalone can be awarded for students who are not able to meet the diploma assessment requirements and or the diploma credit requirements. So in this case, if a student hasn't earned the 3 credits in mathematics, they could exit with the CDOS as a standalone exiting credential. Remember, it's not equivalent to a diploma. So maybe you're granting it so that they can participate in their graduation ceremony and they come back to finish earning that mathematics credit.
Next one's related. Oh, it was an answer. Okay.
So we never want to put students on a track to earning the CDOS as a standalone only. So students should always be working towards earning the local or the Regents diploma. The only exception to that are students with severe disabilities who are working towards the skills and achievement commencement credential. But otherwise, students should be enrolling in coursework that is preparing them to take Regents exams. There's not a specific requirement in the regulation for the CDOS commencement credential that requires students to attempt Regents exam, but they should be those. So again, major life events, consider on a case-by-case basis. So in terms of the admission into the Regents exam, the only reason students should be admitted is because they've completed the course in its entirety. If a school were to design an extended course in algebra where the entire body of instruction that's required for success on that Regents exam occurred over, let's say, 3 semesters, then those students could take that Regents exam in January. Because courses are locally developed in New York State, it's hard to answer that question just based on like a course name. But in order to be admitted into that Regents, the students should have received the entirety of the instruction to ensure them success on that Regents exam. If they haven't, they shouldn't be admitted yet. Yeah, so the ELA again, students need to have the full body of instruction to prepare them for success on the Regents.
Silent seekers.
So I'm not aware of exemption specific to the English Regents exam. There is the traditional appeal, and if students are eligible for the exemption due to major life events, that could be applied.
I don't know what an SWD is.
A student with disability.
Ah,
Yeah, so students with disabilities can combine the safety net and appeal options. So for the English Regions question, as long as they've earned a score in that 60 to 64 range or in the appropriate, oh yeah, general education, so 60 to 64, you can absolutely do the appeal. And if that's the only Regents exam they needed to appeal, they would still earn the Regents diploma. Yep, so that's a yes. If a student with disability hasn't met the minimum score in English and math, they do need that CDOS. So they either have to earn a 55 or above or have a successful appeal of a score in the 52 to 54 range. Homeschool credits, that would be included in the other educational institutions. That would include home instruction. So using the I'm sorry, I wanted to say IEP, but I didn't, the IHIP. Using the IHIP, you would assess what credits could be awarded, just as you would a student transferring from out of state or from a private school.
you answered that one. I think they mean world.
Yes. So there aren't any world language exemptions for out-of-state transfer students, but there are some special ways that you can award world language credits for students who have experience in other than English-speaking environments. You can find that in the LOTE FAQ, even if you just Google NYSED LOTE FAQ, it's question 50 that you'll want to take a look at. Transfer are exempt. I'm not sure what that's for.
Yeah,
Firm.
it's related to the moment in time when you were talking. I'm not sure what.
So the major life exemption could apply to option 2 for earning the CDOS commencement credential. So I think this question is asking if out-of-state transfer students can use the exemption from global and the world language pathway. And they can't, if they accept that exemption from the global history and geography regions exam, they're eliminating the pathway option. They do need to then pass that US history Regents exam to meet that social studies assessment requirement.
I think you had this question at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, and the requirements for under the grad measures initiative, they haven't really been shared yet. So other than those, the research, the New York Inspires plan, all of that information is forthcoming.
That's it. You did it.
Awesome. I can't believe we did it. Thank you
So-
so much.
No, thank you, Melissa.
Melissa, thank you.
Hi, Mary.
Just yeah, thanks again, Melissa. We'll share the materials, including the the recording, and any questions that get answered that we haven't done already. We have another workshop coming up in a couple weeks on DASA and how DASA applies to school counselors. school counselors. And just to remind everybody, our conference is November 13th through 15th in Rochester. Registration is open. Call for programs is open. Call for programs deadline is May 15th. It's all on our website. Thanks for attending. Still 162 people are. Thanks for attending, and thank you again, Melissa.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
You too.
Thanks so
Melissa, thank
much.
you. I want to say from NYSED, this was amazing. As one of the Region 2 governors, thank you so much. At the highest, I was counting 487 people. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bob, Mary, amazing, excellent.